You finally did it. 6 figures. The number you've been working toward for years. Maybe you just got the offer letter, maybe you just crossed it on your last raise, maybe you've been sitting at it for a while now and waiting for it to start feeling like something. Doesn't matter. The point is, you got there. And then you checked your bank account 30 days later and thought, where did it go? Not in a dramatic something went wrong way, in a quiet, unsettling, I did everything right and it still feels tight way. You're not buying yachts, you're not gambling. You're paying rent and groceries and insurance and your car, and somehow at the end of the month, there's just not that much left. If that's you, I want you to know something before we go any further. You're not bad at money. You're not irresponsible. You're not imagining it. The math actually works against you, and I'm going to show you exactly how. Welcome to Debt Theater, where we spend way too much time thinking about money, income psychology, and why the salary number on your offer letter and the salary you actually live on are two completely different things. If you want to understand the real mechanics behind why 6 figures doesn't feel like 6 figures anymore, and more importantly, what actually matters instead, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up making things click. Before I show you exactly where the money goes, I want you to do something. Think about the last time you got a raise. Not just a crossing 100K raise, any raise. Think about how it felt when you found out. That specific mix of relief and excitement, and this sense that things were about to get easier. Now think about 3 months later. Did they? For most people, the answer is not really. The raise arrived, the lifestyle adjusted, and somehow the feeling of tightness came right back, like financial quicksand. The harder you earn, the faster it fills back in around you. That's not a coincidence. That's a system. And once you see how it works, you can't unsee it. Let's start with the number itself, because this is where most people's mental math breaks down completely. When your employer says they're paying you $100,000 a year, they mean exactly that. They are paying $100,000 to you, on paper, in the contract. What actually lands in your bank account is something else entirely. Let's walk through a real example. Take someone earning exactly $100,000 in Illinois, a mid-range, not particularly high-tax state. Federal income tax at that bracket runs roughly $17,400. Illinois state income tax adds another $4,950. FICA, that's Social Security and Medicare, takes $7,650. So before you've spent a single dollar on anything, you're already down $30,000.
You started with $100,000. You now have $70,000. But most people aren't walking away with $70,000 either, because that assumes 0 benefit deductions. Add in health insurance premiums, the employee share averages around $6,600 a year for a family plan, according to KFF's 2024 data. Dental, vision, maybe a parking benefit or transit pass, a modest 401k contribution of 6% to get the employer match. Now you're looking at something closer to $57,000 to $62,000 in actual take-home pay, depending on your state and your benefit elections. You were told you earned $100,000. You actually received somewhere between $57,000 and $62,000 to spend. That is not a rounding error. That is $38,000 to $43,000 that existed on paper and nowhere else. And that's before you've paid for a single thing. Let me run those numbers one more way because I want this to land. $62,000 a year in take-home works out to about $5,167 a month. That sounds reasonable until you start filling in the actual line items. Median rent for a 1-bedroom in a mid-sized American city is running around $1,500 to $1,800 right now. Car payment plus insurance is another $700 to $900 for the average person. Groceries, utilities, phone, internet, that's another $600 to $800 depending on your household. Student loan payments for anyone who graduated with debt are averaging about $500 a month. That's $3,300 to $4,000 in fixed baseline expenses before a single discretionary dollar has been spent, out of $5,167.
you're working with a margin of roughly $1,100 to $1,800 a month. And from that margin, you're supposed to save for retirement, build an emergency fund, have a social life, occasionally replace something that breaks, and feel like a person who earns six figures.
No wonder it feels tight, because it is tight. Now, let's talk about where you live, because this is the variable that almost nobody accounts for when they're evaluating a job offer. $100,000 in San Francisco is, by some measures, below the local definition of middle income. The MIT Living Wage Calculator puts a single adult's basic living wage in San Francisco at over $80,000. A family of four needs closer to $140,000 just to cover the basics, without any luxuries, without any savings, without any margin. That same $100,000 in Jackson, Mississippi buys you something completely different. MIT's data puts the living wage for a single adult there at roughly $38,000. Suddenly, a $100,000 salary in Mississippi feels like something. In San Francisco, it feels like you're barely keeping up. The Bureau of Economic Analysis tracks regional price parities, essentially how far a dollar stretches by state. Hawaii and California index above 115, meaning everything costs at least 15% more than the national average. Mississippi and Arkansas index around 86 or 87. That gap is worth roughly $25,000 in real purchasing power between the most expensive and least expensive states. So if you took a $100,000 job in a major coastal city and you're quietly wondering why it doesn't feel like what you imagined, part of the answer is geographic. You didn't get a six-figure salary in any meaningful sense. You got a six-figure salary denominated in a currency that buys a lot less where you live. And this matters beyond just rent. It affects what your social circle spends, what a normal dinner out costs, what the baseline apartment looks like, what the standard car in the parking lot is. Your entire cost context shifts when you move into a higher income zip code. And that context is the water you swim in every single day. But here's where it gets more uncomfortable. Because taxes and geography are external, the next layer is something that lives entirely inside your own behavior. Lifestyle creep. This is not a new concept, but most people massively underestimate how fast and how automatically it operates. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like a series of completely reasonable upgrades. You earn more, so you move to a nicer apartment, which is sensible. The new apartment is in a slightly nicer neighborhood, also sensible. The slightly nicer neighborhood has slightly nicer restaurants and slightly nicer grocery stores, and your friends who live nearby are on slightly higher incomes, and the social baseline of what a normal Saturday looks like just quietly shifts. The rent went from $1,400 to $2,100. That's $700 a month, $8,400 a year. Gone before you've noticed. The car lease upgrade adds $250 a month. The gym membership is $90 instead of $30. The grocery store is Whole Foods now because it's on the way. You order in twice a week because you work hard and you've earned it. The wardrobe refreshed itself when the job changed. The coffee situation upgraded from homebrew to the place downstairs, because at this point, what's $7? None of these decisions feel irresponsible. Each one in isolation is a completely defensible choice. But the stack of them together, that's where the raise disappears. Research from the National Endowment for Financial Education found that more than 70% of people who receive a significant raise return to roughly the same feeling of financial tightness within 12 months. Not because they're reckless, because lifestyle adjustment is essentially automatic and nearly invisible until you're on the other side of it, looking back. And here's what makes it specifically worse at the six-figure level. The social pressure is real, and it compounds. When you earn $100,000, there's an expectation from yourself, from your peers, from your family, sometimes even from your employer, that your life looks a certain way. The car, the apartment, the vacations, the restaurants, the whole aesthetic of having made it. Psychologists call this neighborhood effects. You don't compare yourself to the general population. You compare yourself to the people immediately around you. And when your income rises, the people around you tend to rise too.
Your reference group shifts, your baseline shifts, and the hedonic treadmill just keeps moving. You worked harder to earn more and ended up running faster just to stay in the same emotional place. Now let's go one layer deeper, because lifestyle creep is the part people vaguely know about. This next part is what they don't talk about nearly enough: the invisible drains.
Bankrate's 2025 data found that the average American household spends $219 per month on subscription services. Not the amount they think they spend. $219 is the actual tracked number. When asked to estimate, most people say $86. That $133 gap is money that is leaving your account every single month that you have genuinely stopped thinking about. Streaming services, software, apps, gym memberships, cloud storage, that meal kit delivery you paused once and never actually canceled, the digital newspaper you opened twice last year. Then there's convenience spending, the category that expands automatically with income. DoorDash twice a week, the car wash membership, the dry cleaner instead of the laundromat, the premium parking instead of the free lot 3 blocks away, the express shipping because waiting 5 days is annoying now. These aren't luxuries in the traditional sense. They're time purchases. And there is nothing inherently wrong with buying time. But they add up to several $100s a month that someone at the $40,000 income level doesn't spend because they can't afford to. When your income rises, the convenience floor rises with it.
And then there's debt servicing. The average American carries $7,886 in credit card debt at a current average APR of around 21.5%. That's roughly $1,700 per year in pure interest. Money that buys you nothing, covers no principal, just services the cost of having borrowed. Add in student loans for a meaningful portion of six-figure earners, and the monthly outflow to debt alone is often $800 to $1,500 before any of it touches actual living expenses. All of that was invisible on the offer letter. But there's one more layer, and I'd argue it's the most psychologically interesting one. Because everything we've covered so far has a logical explanation. Taxes are mandatory. Cost of living is geographic. Lifestyle creep is social pressure. Invisible drains are inattention. This last one is different. This one is chosen. When you earn $100,000, the ceiling on your choices goes up, and something in the human brain interprets a higher ceiling as a reason to spend more, not a reason to save more. You can afford the nicer hotel room, so you book it. You could afford the economy flight, but the premium upgrade is only $180, and you just got paid. The kitchen is fine, but you've wanted to renovate it for years, and now it feels within reach. The watch you've been looking at isn't that far off. The lease on a better car is only like $200 more a month, and you're earning 6 figures now, so what is $200?
This isn't weakness, it's wiring. Behavioral economists call it mental accounting. The idea that people don't treat money as a single fungible resource, but as a series of separate buckets. When the income bucket gets bigger, the permission bucket gets bigger automatically. And nobody sends you an alert when the permission bucket is about to overflow. The tragedy of this, and I mean that word precisely, is that the gap between $100,000 earned and $100,000 building wealth is almost entirely behavioral. The math already worked against you on taxes and cost of living, but the permission spending layer is the part that could actually be changed. And most people spend zero time examining it because it doesn't feel like a problem. It feels like finally getting to live. Here's the number I want you to sit with. Take someone earning $65,000 a year in a mid-cost city. Lower income, objectively fewer resources, but they keep their fixed costs lean. They resist the automatic lifestyle upgrade, and they save 20% of their take-home, about $780 a month, investing it consistently in a basic index fund. Now take someone earning $100,000 in the same city. Better salary, more to work with, but after taxes, lifestyle creep, invisible subscriptions, convenience spending, and permission purchases,
they're saving $400 a month, which is actually all they have left. And they're quietly proud of that number.
Run those two portfolios out 20 years at an 8% average annual return. The $65,000 earner ends up with approximately $458,000. The $100,000 earner ends up with approximately $235,000. The person who earned less built almost twice the wealth, not because they got lucky, not because they were smarter, because the number that matters was never on the offer letter. It was the gap between what came in and what quietly slipped out every month on autopilot. And here's the thing that makes this genuinely worth your time to think about. The $65,000 earner didn't live a deprived life to get there. They just made deliberate choices instead of default ones. They optimized for the spread, the distance between income and fixed outflow, instead of optimizing for the lifestyle the income was supposed to unlock. Every dollar you widen that spread, whether through trimming subscriptions you don't use, resisting the apartment upgrade, driving the car one more year, or just noticing where the convenience spending is going, every one of those dollars has 20 or 30 years to compound. The math on a $300 monthly saving invested at 8% over 25 years is $270,000. Not from genius, from a $300 decision made once and held. Your $100,000 salary is not the problem. It's not the solution either. It's raw material. What you build with it comes entirely down to decisions most people are making on autopilot, without ever stopping to ask whether the autopilot is taking them somewhere they actually want to go. The offer letter told you what you earn. It told you nothing about what you keep, what you build, or what you end up with. Those numbers are still entirely up to you. And unlike the tax rate, unlike the cost of living in your city, unlike the FICA calculation, those numbers you can actually change.